We begin today on the first line of Kuf Yud Amud Aleph. So this is Gemara connecting to the Braisa that was mentioned on Kuf Tes, where it brought the inyan of Zugais. And it said there, La yochel adam trei, La yishta trei, shouldn't eat in pairs, shouldn't drink in pairs. And then it concluded, V'lo yaset tzrochav trei, which refers to marital relations. So the Gemara is going to ask a question on this point. Zok the Gemara, Lo yaset tzrochav trei, not to have marital relations in pairs. So the question is, why would it be considered to be pairs? Nimlachu, he's changing his mind. It's one and one. It's not a pair. The problem is only if l'chatchila it's done as a pair. But if it's nimlach, if a person changes his mind, it shouldn't be an issue. So why is this an issue? Amar Abaye, so Abaye explains, the pshat and the braisa is different. Hachi ka'amar, this is how you read the braisa. Lo yochel trei, don't eat in pairs, v'yishta trei, or drink in pairs. And then, v'lo yaset tzrochav afilu pa'machas, after you ate in pairs and drank in pairs, so then you shouldn't have marital relations even once, because dilma cholish misra, as a result of drinking in pairs and eating in pairs, this will bring about susceptibility to the sheidim, and then in the marital relations you could be weak and be harmed. That's what it refers to. It's not talking about yaset tzrochav terei. It's a hemshech to before, when a person ate or drank in pairs. Tana Rabbanon, we learned in the Braisa. Shoyse keflayim, a person that drinks twice, domai beroishai. His blood is on his head. In other words, he takes responsibility for him harming himself. Amar Rav Yehuda said, Eimesai, when is there the problem? When you're drinking twice in pairs, bisman shalira pnei hashok. If you did not walk out in between, if you didn't walk out into the marketplace in between. Avol ra pnei hashok, if you did walk out in between, then arashus biyadei, then it's okay. You could drink once, then you walk out, you make a break, and you drink again. Amar Ravashi said, Chazin elele Rav Chananya bar Bivi, the akol kose. I saw Rav Chananya bar Bivi that for every cup that he drank, have a nafik, and v'chazi apishuke. He would go out and see the market outside, and then he would come back and drink his next cup. It should never be two. Now the Gemara clarifies the whole issue that we have here with zugais that makes you susceptible to sheidim, to come and harm you. When was this said? Elo lotzes lederech. Only if you're going out into the way, which is a place which is putting yourself into danger of sheidim. Avol bebeisai, but if you remain in your house, then zugais is not an issue. Amar Rab Zeire said, Velishon, and going to sleep, kilotzes lederech dami, is similar like going out into the way. That's why when we say Krishma Shalamita, there are different things that we say in order to protect ourselves from sheidim. Amar Rav Papa said, and velotzis lebeis hakisei, to go to the bathroom, is also kilotzis lederech dami. It's like also going out into the way. Maybe this refers only in those times when they had to go out to the bathroom, out into an outhouse. Maybe today as well, but it's considered to be like going out into the way. Now the Gemara asks in this, is zugais not an issue if you're remaining at home? But when Rava would drink, manik shuri, he would count the beams in the ceiling in order to keep count of what he was drinking, so that he shouldn't drink zugais even when he was at home. Va'abaya kishasi chad kasa, Abaya, as soon as he drank one cup, manket le'imei trei kasi, his mother would give him immediately another two kaises, betrei yada, in his two hands, so that he should drink three and not drink two. V'Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, yaveshasi trei kasi, when he drank two cups, manket leishamei chad kasa, so his servant would bring him another cup, so it should be three. And chad kasa, when he drank one cup, manket le trei kasi betrei yada, so the servant gave him two, that it should be three. So we see from all these Amirayim here that they were concerned about zugais even when they remained at home. And says the Gemara, Adam Choshev Shani. These Amirayim, when you talk about important people, that's different. As Rashi says, the Sheidim do whatever they can. They're Meisen Nefesh, Mosri Sheidim Nafshaya. They sacrifice themselves to Lazuki, to be Mazik, people that are on such a level. But for an ordinary person, if you're remaining at home, Zugais is not an issue. Talk to Gemara Vaita, Omar Ule said, Asara cases. Now, when we speak about zugais, it's not only two, but it's 2, 4, it's in any kind of pairs, in an even number. The issue of zugais has to be an odd number and not even. But Ula came and said, Asara cases, if you're drinking 10 cups, Ein Ben Mishum zugais. The number 10, there's no issue of zugais anymore. Ola letaimei, Ola follows his opinion. The Amar Ola v'amri lab masnitetana. Ola said, and others said it was taught in the Braisa. Asara kaises tiknu chachamim bebeisa oval. There are 10 kaises that was instituted that you should drink in the house of an oval. This is explained there's also in Masech Smachis where it says exactly the Seder, how they drank these 10 kaises. So it was instituted to drink their 10 kaises. If there's an issue of zugais in this number of 10, how would Chachamim institute something which is a sakana? Similar to the question that we had before regarding the Dalet kaises. So it must be that the number 10, there's no issue. With the number 8, there still is an issue of zugais. Now here the Gemara is going to bring various different Amiroim, and each one is going to go down a number and show how, in his opinion, the issue of zugais does not apply, and they come down less and less how regarding zugais. So Rav Chisda and Rabbi Barafuna Damri Tarvayu, Rav Chisda and Rabbi Barafuna both said that Shalom, the word Shalom that there is in Birchas Kayanim, it's the 7th word of Birchas Kayanim. If you start from Yivarechacha, so Shalom is number 7. So it's the Zug 7 and 8 would be the pair of the number 8. So this word Shalom, which is 7, L'Taiva Mitztaref, it could be combined only for the positive. After you have the number 6, you come to Shalom, which is the 7th word. You could combine it to 6 only for the positive. It'll be an odd number. But L'Ra Le Mitztaref, that word Shalom, which is 7, to combine it to 8 for the negative, that 8 should then be a zugais, it doesn't combine for that. In other words, so what Rabbi and Rav Chisda are both saying is, Rav Chisda and Rabbi Barafuna that is, what they're both saying is that the number 8 is not an issue of zugais. Why? Because of the word shalom in Birchas Kainim that protects us from these shadim. However, in the number 6, in their opinion, there still is an issue of zugais. Rabbi Rav Yosef, Damri Tarvayu, Rabbi Rav Yosef went a step further and said, V'choneka, which is the 5th word in Birchas Kayanim, L'toiva mitztaref could be combined to 4 for the positive, and L'ra lo mitztaref. This number 5, which is connected to the word V'choneka, will not combine to the number 6 to be negative. So therefore there is no issue of zugais in the number 6. But number 4, there is still an issue of zugais. Abai Rava went a step further and said, the word V'yishmerecha, which is the 3rd word of Birchas Kayanim, will be combined for the positive. It does not combine to the number 4 in the negative. And so therefore there is no issue of zugais regarding the number 4. Rava that said this. It's not. I'm saying the number V'yishmerecha is number 3. It's right. Number 3. So what he's saying is that V'yishmerecha, which is the 3rd in Birchas Kayanim, so it does not combine to number 4 to create an issue of zugais. Right? So the point that you see in this Gemara is that Birchas Kayanim protects Yidden from Shadim. And therefore each one of these Amiraim said that the different parts and the psukim of Birchas Kayanim, the end of the pasuk, whether it's Shalom or V'choneka, V'yishmerecha, protects Yidden from the zugais in these numbers. Rava that said that the number 4 is not an issue of zugais, v'az the Rava l'taimei, the Rava afkinu l'rabanon barba kaisis. Rava, when he would see off the Talmidei Chachamim, he would send them off and he would give them 4 kaisis to drink. Afal gav, and now the Gemara says, even though it did once happen, the Itzek, Rava bar Livoi was harmed when he sent them off and drinking Dalet kaisis. So, nevertheless, he wasn't concerned about the matter that this might have been a result from the fact that he gave him 4 cases. Why not? Because he said, you know why this Rava bar Livoi got harmed from Sheidim? It was for a different reason. Because he challenged me publicly in the drasha, in the shir that I said in a way that was disrespectful. That's the reason why he got harmed. But it has nothing to do with the issue of zugais. Okay, so the Rashbamir asks a question. It says right here that Rava is not concerned about zugais regarding the number 4. But the Gemara before asked regarding zugais when it came to the Dalet Kaisis, which is the number 4. And one of the ones that answered that question was Rava. But if Rava wasn't concerned, why did he even answer that question? The Rashbam explains when it comes to the inyan of zugais, as we'll see in the Hemshech of the Gemara, there's an issue of zugais that you become susceptible to Shadim, and also that you become susceptible to Kishuf. And therefore, what all of these Amiraim here are saying, that in these numbers you're not susceptible, because whether it's 10 or 8 or 6 and so on, that's only regarding Shadim. But regarding Kishuv, it still is an issue, and therefore Rava had to answer the question before regarding Dalet cases. Rav Yosef said, Amali Yosef Shida. Yosef the Shed told me, Ashmedai Malke the Shida, Ashmedai, which is the king of the Shadim, Mimunahu Akul Zugi. He is appointed on all these Zugim, that how when a person becomes vulnerable to the Shadim, so he's appointed on this. Malke leikri mazik. And a king is not someone that harms. In other words, what he's saying is that really the harm that could come from Zugais is not something which is common. Because the king of the Shadim, which is involved with this, it's not really something which is he does commonly. It could happen, so therefore you should be careful if you can, but it's not something which is common. That's one version of this. Iked Amri, la lahaigi. So others said this conversation in the other way. Adarab, on the contrary, Malke Raschanahu, the king of the Shadim, Ashmedai, is very angry. So my the boy of it, and whatever he wants he can do. A king can break open a place and make a breach to go through for a way. And no one can protest against him. So therefore, Adarabah, you have to be very careful about the subject of Zugais, because Melech Ashmedai is the one that is involved with this. Rav Papa said, Amali Yosef Shide, Yosef the Shed told me, Betrei Katlinon, when you have Zugais in the number of 2, you could be vulnerable to be killed by the Shadim. Barba loikatlinon. In the number of 4, they won't kill you, but barba mazkinon. In the number of 4, you could be harmed by them. Another distinction between the number 2 or 4, betrei, in the number 2, bein b'shegig, bein b'mezid. You could be harmed whether you drank this number 2, whether b'shegig or b'mezid. Barba, in the number 4, b'mezid in, regarding mezid, you could be harmed, but b'shegig loy. If it was inadvertently you drank the number 4, you will not be harmed. Now the Gemara says, V'i ishtali, if you forgot, V'ikri, and it happened, V'nafik, you went out. You drank 2 or any of the number of the zugas that could harm you, and you went out into the street. So what do you do now? How do you save yourself from your vulnerability because of these zugas? Mai tekante, what should you do? So the Gemara says as follows, Lit linkait zakfe the yade the amina, take the thumb of your right hand, biyada the smaller, and stick it into your left hand. And v'zakfe the smaller, and take the thumb of your left hand, biyada the yamine, and stick it into your right hand. And v'neima hachi, and you should say as follows: Aton, you, I guess the shadim, which are 2, va'ana and me, which is 1, hatlasa, together we're 3. So in other words, what the person wants to say is, he wants to get rid of this issue of zugay, so he says, we're 3. Vishmiele, if he's going to hear a response from the Shadim, the Omar, that the Shadim are going to say to him, Atun va'ano, ha'arba, that the Shadim will say no, that you and me are really 4. In other words, the Shadim are trying to draw back the kayach of zugais, and therefore they'll respond to you and say that the number is 4. Neimele atun, you should respond back. Neimele, you should respond back. Atun va'ano, ha'chamisha, you and me is 5. And if after you say that, the Shadim will respond to you and say that it's 6, you should respond back and say, no, we are 7. And like this, you continue going, you should not to remain with an even number, which is zugais. It should be with an odd number. There was once an incident that had happened, such a thing, where a person was having a conversation back and forth, and he went higher and higher in the number, ad meya v'chad, until he concluded with the number of 101, upaka sheda, and the shade burst, because he couldn't keep his power that he wanted with the number of zugais. Amar Ameimer said, Amrali rishtini, the Nashim Kashfaniyais, the head, the leader of the women of Kishuv, of sorcery. So she said to me as follows: Hi man the paga buhu be Nashim Kashfaniyais. If you will encounter one of these women that do Kishuv, so what should you do? What should you say to them to not be harmed? Neima achi, say as follows: Chari chamimi, hot waste from a human being. Bidikula bazia, in torn baskets. Lupumaychu nashi da chashaya, should be to the mouth of these women that are doing kishuf. Korach karchaychu, you should tear out your hair and expose your baldness. Parach parchaychu, and you should fly away the pieces of bread that you use for your kishuf. Ivdur tavlunaychu should scatter around your spices that you use for your kishiv. Parche zike lemuraike chadete. The Eibusha should bring a wind to blow away your new besamim that you use for your kishiv. The naktisu noshim kashvanias that these women of kishiv hold in their hands. And then you conclude, Ad Chanani, until now that I was shown mercy from the Eibishter to me, V'chananaichi, and your mercy upon me, Lo yasisu l'goy. I did not come into your midst. Hashter the asus l'goy, now that I've come into your midst, Karchanani, that means that the love of the mercy of the Eibishter to me was cooled off, V'chananaichi, and also your mercy upon me was also cooled off. This is the statement that you have to say to these women of Kishiv when you encounter them. And the Gemara says, "B'marave loikopti azuge." In Eretz Yisrael, they were not particular, they were not careful about this whole thing of zugais, not to drink or eat or whatever, do things in pairs. Rav Dimi min Nerdoa kopid, Rav Dimi from Nerdoa was careful regarding zugais. Afile aroishme de chavita. Even when it came to making a engraving, like a sign in a barrel, it comes to selling the barrel to know exactly what the amount you're selling is, not to make a roishim in a double because of zugais. And the Gemara brings an incident in connection to this point. Hava uvda. There was an incident of poka chavita where they made a roishim in zugais and the barrel exploded or burst. Now the Gemara says the known rule about this. Klala de milsa. Here's the rule. Call the kapit. Anyone that he himself is particular about it, he's worried about it, he's concerned about it. Kapti ba'adei. So then the sheidim will be particular with him as well. He makes himself more susceptible to be harmed. With the loy kapit, if you're not particular about it, so then loy kapti ba'adei. Then they will not be particular with you and they will not harm you. But umiyo lemechash miboy. Still somewhat of a concern about this there should be. So this is the famous Gemara that says it's both regarding this union of Sheidim, regarding Kishiv, and it's regarding Ayin Hara, all kinds of things, that a person that's not makbid, a person that's not particular about it, they're not particular with him. So the Shalach Kaddish says that the reason is because a person that's not particular, what the Gemara really means to say is that if you just have B'tachan and the Eibishter himself, that the Eibishter protects a Yid, so the B'tachan will protect you and you won't have to be careful about this union of Zugais. Ki asar Avdimi, when Avdimi came, Omar he said, Shtei Beitzim. The source of Zugais is as follows. What's really the issue with Zugais? What's the source of this? The issue is with Shtei Beitzim, 2 eggs, Shtei Agaisin, 2 walnuts, Shtei Kishuin, 2 squashes, and the Dovaracha. And there's one more thing in doubles that was an issue. Halacha l'Moshe Misinai. This concept of Zugais is a halacha. It was learned from Moshe Misinai. So the original issue was regarding the eggs, walnuts, and squash. But there was one more. A mistapkalu l'Rabbanon. The Rabbanon had a suffix, my niu dovaracher. What is this last one that there's an issue with zugais? And they didn't know what it was. And therefore, v'gazu Rabbanon bekulu zugi mishum dovaracher. Therefore, they made a decree regarding any other zugais that you should be careful with it because we don't know that Allah l'Moshe Misinai what it was, what that dovaracher was. It says in Sfarim. And there's Rabbeinu Bechaye, the Shlach Kaddish, and other Mefarshim that's explained what is really the source of the issue of Zugais. The source of the issue of Zugais appears that Apikarsim and the Keiches of Tumas say that if you look in the world and you see things in doubles, you see certain things like 2 eggs, what that indicates is that there's Shtei Shriyas Ba'olam, that there's a duality in the world, that there's Kaviyachol Chas v'Shalom, so to speak, that there's two forces in the world that control everything that's going on in the world. The opposite of Hashem Echad. So therefore the Zugais is sort of that Kayach of Klippa, of Tum in the world that fights the unity of the Eibusher in the world. And therefore you shouldn't have Zugais. That's the source of Zugais. And I saw that some explain that was the point of what it said before, that when you have an issue with Zugais, so you have the 2 hands, they would also say, look at a person. He has 2 hands, 2 eyes, 2 ears. Doesn't that show that there's sort of 2 forces in the world that creates everything? So therefore, what do you do when you have an issue of zugais? You take your 2 hands and you put your thumb of one hand and the other into each other to sort of indicate that it's really all one. It's really all connected to one Eibishter. That's originally the source of zugais. And here the Gemara is saying that this concept of zugais was a halacha l'Moshe Misinai. And now this is what we said before. that Asara, the number 10, Tmanya or 8, Shita 6, Arba 4, Ein Be'em Mishum Zugi. There's no issue of Zugi in those numbers, as we explained before. Lo Yamaran Elalinya Mazikin. That was only said regarding Mazikin, as I pointed out before. Avalinya Kshafim, but as far as being vulnerable to Kishuf through Zugais, Afile Tuve Nami Chashin. And all these numbers and even higher numbers, you have to be concerned. And the Gemara brings an incident that happened. Ahu Gavre the Garshale de Bisu. A person divorced his wife. Ozil, or it's others are good, it's Ozla, she went, and Insavel Lechanva, she got married to another person, to a storekeeper. Kol Yoime, every day, have a Ozil v'shasi chamra. The first husband would go and drink wine together with the second husband. Right, which is not an appropriate thing to do. The Pais can bring this from here that he shouldn't have done that. So have a Ka'avdele, so the wife of the second husband, so she was upset about this. So have a Ka'avdele kshafim. She would try to do all kinds of kishif in order to harm her first husband. V'loi kamahanyala. It wasn't effective. V'loi kamahanyala bei. Mishum dahava mizdar benafshei bezuga, because he was very careful never to drink in pairs or never to do anything in a zug. Yoyim echat. Once it happened, Ishti Tuva, he drank a lot of wine, and he couldn't keep account of what he drank. Ad Shitzer Havitzayel. Until the number 16, his mind was clear to know what the number was. Vizdar benafshe. He was careful not to drink in Zugais. Mikan ve'elech, past the 16 cups, lo yavitzayel, his mind wasn't clear anymore, v'lo benafshe, and he was not careful with himself. Apikte bezuge, so the second husband sent him away after drinking a certain number, which was a peer, which was a zug. And Kiyava Ozel, when he was walking on his way, Gaius Gosbea Hutaya, so this Arab merchant encountered him, and Amalei, this Arab merchant, said to him, Gavre Kitilu Hudazel Hacha, I see a dead person walking over here. Ozel, so he started not feeling well. He went, Chafke Ledikla, he embraced a palm tree. Tzavach Dikla, immediately this palm tree dried up. Upakahu, and the person himself burst. All from the kayach of the kishuf of his previous wife that affected him when he wasn't careful with the union of zugais. Omar Rav Avira said, Kairais v'kikrais. If you're eating plates of food prepared, kikrais or breads, ein be'em mishum zugais. Here there's no issue of zugais. Why not? Klala de milsa. Here's the rule regarding zugais. Kol shegomre b'dei adam. Anything that's prepared through a human being, ein be'em mishum zugais. There's no issue of zugais. Gomre b'dei shemayim. Anything that's prepared from heaven. So b'mili mini de meichel, regarding food items, chashinan were concerned for zugais. So it's only something which is prepared min hashamayim, and it's only something which is food. That's where the issue of zugais is. Chanos ein be'em mishum zugais. In a store, there's no issue of zugais. Rashbam has two pshatim. One pshat he says is that in a store, because it's not an established place, you're drinking in a store, let's say you're drinking in a restaurant or in a store, it's not an established place where you live or where you are permanently, so there's no issue of zugais. Another pshat he says is that chanos means you drink one in one store and one in another store, they don't combine. There's no issue of zugais. Nimlach, as we said before already, if you had one and you weren't planning on having another, and then you changed your mind and you did, ein be'em mishum zugais, there's no issue of zugais, they don't combine. Oirach, a guest that gets one drink and then gets another drink, also ein be'em mishum zugais, because he doesn't know that he's going to get that second drink, so it doesn't combine. Isha, ein be'em mishum zugais as well. A woman also, when she drinks and she's not sure if she's going to get another drink, she's not accustomed to drinking one another, and therefore she's not sure she's going to get another drink, ein be'em mishum zugais, there's also no issue of zugais. V'i isha chashuva, if it's a prominent woman and she knows and she gets l'chatchila two drinks together, then chashina, there is an issue of zugais. Omer Rav Chinana bereid Rabbi Yeshua, asparagus mitztaref l'toiva. Asparagus was the kind of drink that was made from cabbage and wine. This combines only for the positive. Ve'ei mitztaref l'ra, does not combine for zugis for the negative. Omer Ravina mishmei de Rav, Ravina said in the name of Rav, zugi l'chamra. If you had a zug of wine, sorry again, no. This is Gemara soon. Let's do this again. So Ravina said in the name of Rabbi, zugi, when you have a doubt regarding how much you drank, if you did drink zugais or you did not, l'chumra, you should be stringent about this. In other words, drink another cup. So Rashi explains what is the accomplishment of being stringent and drinking another cup. If you drink another cup, so then if you drank before 2, so this will be a third. That will be good. If you drank before 1, and now you're drinking another 1, or you drank before 3, and now this is going to be the 4th, so then it'll also be okay because you're considered to be nimlach. You didn't drink it all together, so it won't be mitzdaref. So if you have a doubt about whether you drank zugais, you should be stringent. For Amri Loi, others say, no, zugi, regarding the union of zugis, if you have a doubt about this, lukula, you should be lenient. You should not drink more. Right? What Rashi explains, this goes back to what the Gemara said before. If you're not particular about it, if you're not going to be worried about it, they won't be particular with you. So therefore, if you have a doubt about it, just don't worry. Rav Yosef says, so here's regarding the wine. Today, the chamra, 2, if you drank 2 cups of wine, v'chad shichra, and 1 cup of beer, loy mitzdarev. That cup of beer, which is not as choshev as the wine, will not combine to the wine that you drank to get rid of the issue of zugais. Today, the shichra, if you drank 2 cups of beer, and then v'chad chamra, then you drank a cup of wine, which is more choshev than the beer, mitzdarev, that cup of wine will combine to the beer to get rid of the issue of zugais. In other words, the point is, if you add a third that's more prominent, that's a better drink than what you drank before, it will get rid of zugais. Simanach, and a simon for this is, in a Mishnah where it talks about the shear of the size of the minimum size of something which is mekabel tumah. So there's a Mishnah in Kalim that speaks about the different things of how large it has to be. If it has to be, Rashi here brings 2 examples, whether it has to be 5 tvachim by 5 tvachim or 6 tvachim by 6 tvachim. There's different materials that have different shiurim. So the question is, what happens if you have a material that has less of a shear, and then you combine to that material from another material, another part? Does it combine together, these materials? So the Mishnah there says, Zeh haklal. The klal is as follows. Kol ha-mechubaloi min ha-chomer mimenu tameh. If you have a material that is not have enough of the shear, but then you combine to it something else that finishes off its shear. So if what you combine to it is more chomer, in other words, it's from something that only requires a smaller shear, it's more chomer. Like Rashi brings the example, a mapatz is chamisha, a machzeles is shisha. So for example, if you had this mapatz, which was only 4 tvachim, and you combine to it a piece of machzeles to be mashlemit, so then, or the other way around actually, you had a machzeles, which was chamisha, and you combine to it a piece of a mapatz, which is only chamisha, because it's more chamor, so it does combine. It becomes susceptible to tumah. Minakal mimenu, if you combine to it a piece from something which is more lenient than it, then tar, then it does not combine. So just like you see over here in the Mishnah, regarding combining to be mashlim the size, to be susceptible to tumah, the same is also beneged to combining, beneged to zugais. If you combine something that's less important, less of a good drink, it doesn't get rid of the zugais. If it's a better drink, it does get rid of the zugais. Rav Nachman said in the name of Rav, Trei kamitake. If you had 2 drinks, zugais, before the table of food was brought, before the Suda. V'chad ataka. Then a 3rd drink at the Suda itself. Mitztarfi. So that which you drank by the Suda itself will combine and get rid of the zugais. So this is again based on the same point before. According to Rav, what you drink during a meal is more choshev than what you drank before the meal. So therefore what you drank at the meal will combine to what you drank before to get rid of the issue of zugais. Chad mekamitake, but if you drank 1 before the meal, and then v'trei atake, and 2 cups during the meal, then loy mitzdarf. What you drank before the meal, which is less choshev than what you drank during the meal, will not be combined to get rid of the issue of zugais. Maskeflor of Misharshia disagrees with this. He says, no, Otu anan l'sekuni taka kabinon. Are we trying to rectify an issue with the table, with the suda that you have? L'sekuni gavre binon. We're trying to rectify an issue of zugais regarding the person that drank it. The gavre kamasakin v'koi. And the person, if he drank 2 before and 1 during the meal, or 1 before and 2 during the meal, it will combine. In other words, what Rav Misharshi is saying, the fact that 1 is during the meal or 1 is not during the meal is not an issue. It could combine to get rid of the issue of zugais regarding the gavra. Whether the table is there or not will not make a difference. So the Gemara now says, this was all till they were arguing regarding drinking before the meal and during the meal. But the Kula Alme, everybody will agree, today atake, if you drank 2 cups during the meal, v'chad lebas atake, and then you remove the table and the meal is over, and now you drank 1 after the meal, loy mitzdarfi. In such a case, everybody will agree that it will not combine. They were only arguing about before the meal and during the meal, but not during the meal and after the meal. There was a story with Rabbi Bar Nachmani that the Gemara says in Bab Metzia, which says a story that he drank zugais and he was concerned about it, and the meal was over already. So he said, bring back the table, and let's do the meal again in order to be able to correct the issue of zugais. Okay, just one more thing of it. Let's finish off with one more point about zugais. Amar Rav Yudah Mashmuel, kol hamazug, any kind of drink that's mazug, that's diluted, so it doesn't matter what beverage it is. But if it's mazug, so then mitztaref. So it could be, let's say, wine that's mazug, a beer that's mazug, any other kind of drink. The very fact that it's a drink which is mazug, so it has a similarity, so all these drinks are mitztaref for the issue of being zugais. Chutz min hamayim, besides water which is diluted, as we'll see, for example, you dilute cold water with hot water or so on, that's not called mazuk, that's all water. But Rabbi Yechanan said, afilamayim, even water as well, I say the same thing, that it's called mazuk, and therefore it will combine to the issue of zugais. Rav Papa explains regarding water, if you were diluting hot water and cold water, or cold water and hot water, if you poured hot water into hot water, or you pour cold water into cold water, then it's not an issue. So the issue of zugais regarding mazug is, so there's an argument here if it applies to water. Even if it does apply to water, it's only if it's hot into cold or cold into hot.